Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Amelie Maran Podcast, where we talk all things travel, moving abroad, and a bit of girl chat too. Today we're going to be talking about managing mental health when traveling, because I think it's such an important topic to talk about. I don't see it talked about enough, and I just want to relay my experiences and my sort of journey with it whilst traveling and also moving to a completely different country. Let's get into it. My week this week has been pretty hectic, I would say. I recorded the episode with Grace, which has been received so well, and I'm so glad everybody loved it. It was so nice having her on the show. She has the best travel stories, and I will 100% have to get her on again to talk about more, because I don't think we could fit all of the conversations we could have about travel into one episode. One thing I do want to celebrate this week as well is I got my first paycheck, which might sound silly and everybody will be thinking, yeah, great, whatever. But for me, it is such a mood booster and it really shows me that the work I've been doing is paying off. And it always doesn't feel that way. I think also when you work in hospitality, there is sometimes quite a negative environment, maybe. It's very hard work and a lot of the customers you're dealing with can be quite difficult people sometimes. And so getting my first paycheck and just showing that my work paid off was such a mood booster. And I felt really, really proud. I jumped up, went over and gave Sam a hug. I was so proud of myself. I also don't know anybody, so I've kind of had to be this social butterfly the past few weeks, just saying hi to everybody. I'm open to work with everybody and just have to kind of roll with it. So that was something I wanted to celebrate for this week. But let's get on with the episode because I have quite a lot that I want to talk to you guys about, and I'm really excited to answer some of the questions that people have surrounding mental health. I think talking about your mental health whilst traveling it just kind of brings some sort of realism to traveling, because you see it on Instagram, and I'm definitely guilty of this. I'm not going to post any times where I've been feeling anxious or upset on my Instagram, but you see it a lot with people that don't want to post about any negative experiences, or you don't really want to be bringing your panic attacks to your Instagram. So I want to just talk about it to kind of show maybe a behind the scenes of what you see when people are traveling. And Instagram is not all that it seems, obviously. I think everybody knows that by now. It's just a case of, whilst you're feeling extremely fulfilled exploring new places, I think there are times where you feel overwhelmed, you feel quite anxious, or you can also just get really tired, which then can translate into other issues. I just think it's quite normal from what I saw, but maybe it's not spoken enough about. I'm personally quite an anxious person. I've dealt with anxiety for many years, and panic attacks especially. I was one of those people that was so anxious about going traveling, but also really, really excited, which I feel is quite normal. I don't think that's like a weird mix of emotions, but I was really anxious about not having a plan, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And it actually ended up that was the best way to go. Some people do plan out their whole kind of 6 months, and people book things in advance and everything, which kudos to you. I'm not organized enough to do that. So I'm just not that way wired, which, whilst I'm an anxious person, you can see would be a complete paradox. So anyway, I just think that self-care really can go out of the window whilst you're traveling. You're moving to so many different spots constantly. You're constantly meeting new people. Your social battery has to be like A game most of the time. And most of that time, you just want to sit alone and take in this new place that you're visiting. So I just want to talk about it because there's different ways you can deal with it. I want to explain the ways that I have coped with it myself. What can also play on your mental health is that you are potentially missing milestones for people at home, which I found really difficult to kind of leave behind. And things like my sister did her A-levels and she's gonna go to uni, and I'm missing all of that process. And another one of my sisters is turning like such a milestone age, and it's just it feels almost like I'm guilty for leaving everybody at home, but I also don't feel guilty because this is something I want to do and I want to travel. And I definitely think that's also an aspect of mental health that played on my mind quite a lot. And I didn't want to miss out on those big milestones. I didn't want to feel like I was leaving anybody behind. But I think that that can also be a difference between how the people around you feel about you going traveling. My parents were I mean, could not have gotten me out the door quicker. And they love me, they care for me, but they went traveling and they know how amazing it is and just wanted me to experience it. So I think I would say that your environment can, before you leave, can also contribute to maybe how you start your travels or how you feel about your travels as a whole. Let me get into my personal tips for what I did when we were traveling. As quite an anxious person, the first thing I have noted down that helped me deal with any feelings of anxiety, any feelings of being overwhelmed, was listening to music. And I'm quite I'm quite an obsessive personality. I think I only listened to about 3 albums when we were traveling. Genuinely from from the minute we left the UK to the minute we landed in Australia. I was listening to 21st Century Blues by Ray. I was listening to Eternal Sunshine by Ariana Grande once that came out. I think that came out in April. So from April to July, that's honestly all I played on my phone. Then obviously Taylor Swift's Tortured Poets Department album. That is one of the best albums ever. So I had that playing as well. And I want to say maybe 4. I had the Billie Eilish album once that had come out. And what's funny is like I love pop music, but it's not usually something I listen to. I'm more of an R&B hip hop kind of person, jazz kind of person. I guess you could kind of count Ray as that. So I would just spend entire bus rides listening to these albums. And genuinely, I created a playlist and I think I just called it like Albums Inspire or something. Because also being a songwriter, I was loving all the lyrics that I was listening to and like really trying to understand what all of them meant, things like that. And so I would spend bus rides listening to this playlist, which was only the 3 albums, 4 by the end. And it's all I would play. I played a few podcasts, I will say, like Miss Me with Lily Allen and Makita, Call Her Daddy, and a bit of Diary of a CEO. But genuinely those 3/4 albums got me through every long bus ride. Or I also kept a journal or a diary, I guess, of our travels because I asked my family to get me one just so I could kind of write in it every day and I didn't want to forget anything. And I would just put my music in my AirPods and just be writing. And both were quite therapeutic to me. It was kind of, I'm reflecting on my day, but also listening to music that makes me feel comforted and makes me feel safe. So I would say finding a playlist or create yourself a playlist of music that makes you feel safe and you absolutely adore. Even though half of the songs that I was listening to were all really sad and they were all heartbreak songs. I mean, Tortured Poets Department is like a whole heartbreak album. It felt like I was at home and brought me back to my roots, I guess. If you're traveling with someone, please make sure, I mean, I've only learned this through traveling, which sounds ridiculous, but always check in with the person you're traveling with. If you're traveling in a couple or traveling as a group of best friends, a pair of best friends, checking in on each other, I think, is the most important part of the day because somebody might be feeling really anxious, somebody might not, and they can help each other. And I don't know if maybe this is something people do, but it was something that we definitely had to learn how to do. Little questions that you can just bring up in a conversation. It doesn't need to be a whole sit down, let's chat about this, it's so serious. It can just be, how are you feeling? No, really, how are you feeling? And well, I feel a bit anxious and overwhelmed. How do you feel? Because it opens up that conversation, and I think it's so, so, so important. Another way I managed my mental health when traveling was calling everybody in my inner circle. I have a very small inner circle, I would say, of very close friends, and I would just call them, FaceTime them, speak to them, text them, and I would just be really honest with them because I need their comfort and I need some sort of comforting words in that moment. So just calling a friend and saying, I am feeling really anxious today. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm just a bit overwhelmed by this whole situation, and this is a whole new place and I don't really know anything about it. Hearing their comforting words can sometimes help you and make you feel less alone. And so I do think, as a solo traveler especially, I can imagine how much calling your loved ones means to you and how much it can really lift your spirits. Another thing I did when we were traveling to, I guess, kind of manage my mental health was reading. I'm the kind of person that I do love to read, but I'm so bad at doing it and staying consistent. I can very easily, I either get really bored of the book and just kind of forget about it, or I race through the book. I'm not like a steady, consistent reader, if that makes sense. I was also quite annoyed that I wouldn't be able to take books with me traveling, because obviously they take up quite a lot of space if I was to bring 6 months worth of books. So I downloaded the Amazon reading app or the Kindle app or something, and my family have Amazon Kindle, I don't actually know what it was called. I should have researched that. But I would just download the books on my phone and then I could read them in bed and things like that. And I don't like reading on a screen. I used to be a Kindle person. I've seen that the Kindle has like come back and everybody loves it, but I really prefer physical books. So as soon as we landed here, I bought some books because I was very excited. But I prefer to read the physical book. It would just take my mind off being anxious or feeling a bit overwhelmed. I was able to just kind of calm down. So I don't know, I didn't read to manage my mental health, but I would say upon reflection, it definitely helped my mental health and helped me calm down in certain situations, or made me just kind of forget about how I was feeling for a minute, and then you can kind of regroup. If you're going for a long period of time and you can't take physical books with you, 100% take your Kindle or the Kindle app on. I'll find out what it's called and I'll let everybody know. I can't remember. Now we're moving on to the question part of the podcast episode. I've got my questions here on my laptop, so I'm just going to answer some for you guys. So the first question is, how can I manage anxiety while traveling? I've kind of covered that in how I managed my mental health. Anxiety is such a weird one. It really is. It just pops up out of nowhere. I still have it to this day. I still have moments. I've had it in the past few weeks moving to a new country where I just suddenly have a panic attack, or I suddenly feel extremely anxious. And I think the most frustrating part about anxiety that I know a lot of people relate to is, but why? There's nothing in this situation that is threatening me directly. I don't feel unsafe. So that's the part about anxiety I would say I find the most confusing, the most why. I just get more frustrated by it, to be honest. One thing that has really helped me with anxiety whilst traveling was talking to Sam about it. Like I said, listening to music, also watching my favorite shows. We didn't have Friends or Big Bang Theory, which are obviously like staple TV shows to watch on Netflix. We didn't have that for 5 months, however long. And I found that really difficult, which sounds so embarrassing, but I really struggled not having those because they were my comfort shows. But definitely finding your favorite films to watch really would bring me comfort. Even if you've seen that film a million times, it really brought comfort to me. There was a rainy day in Colombia when we were on the coffee axis and we couldn't really go out, couldn't do anything. And Sam and I just sat in and watched Cars. It's one of our favorite Disney films. And I think it just brings you this sort of cozy, warm comfort that you need. And just speaking to loved ones, just calling them, texting them, even if you just send them a quick text, like feeling a bit anxious today, but I am missing you and I can't wait to talk to you. Let's call later. Something like that. If not, like I said before, journaling as well. I've always found it really helps. And putting things on a page that I might feel in that moment, but once it's written out, don't feel it anymore, don't think about it again. And I'm sure that's also relatable, that a lot of other people treat journaling that way. And so I really recommend even just taking a notebook. Doesn't have to be a diary, but just writing in little thoughts every day. Or I don't know, you can do whatever you want with your own notebook. You could write down everything and then rip out the pages, or you could burn it. I don't know, like you can do whatever you want. But I think for me, anxiety is something I have to get out of my system, and it's something I have to try and process out of my body. Otherwise it just manifests itself and I get really shaky, I get headaches and feel too overwhelmed, and that's not fun for anybody. The next question is, what should I do if I feel homesick on my trip? I kind of spoke about this with Grace in the last episode. Homesickness is such a weird one because it shows up at the most random times, and it also doesn't always mean what you think it means. Being homesick does not mean that you want to go home. Being homesick does not mean that I need to come home right now and I can't be here anymore. I hate this place. Sometimes it just means I just would love to be around my family. When we went to our family friend's house down the Great Ocean Road a few weeks ago, having a home cooked meal was like the biggest warm hug ever. It was so, so nice, and we appreciated it so much because we've not had anybody cook us a meal in quite a while, and it hasn't felt like home, and that was really, really, really special. But to go back to homesickness, I think you just have to deal with it in a way of kind of reflecting on yourself. Some people, it's homesickness where they go, I just want to go home, I don't like it here, and that's fine. I don't think that should be made to be a big deal. I think you enjoy spending time with people at home. I think that's a nice thing. So I think it's about reflecting on yourself. Like I said, maybe in a journal, maybe in a space in your notes app, I don't know, and kind of listing the reasons why you want to go home, how it would be different if you were home, and try and rationalize it in that way, because Grace touched on this as well. It's never usually that different when you go home. Everything's usually pretty much the same. Next question is, how can I maintain a healthy routine when traveling? If anybody finds out, let me know. I can't say that I had the healthiest habits maybe when traveling. I'm quite a slim build person, I won't lie. I've never really been overweight or anything, and the first time I have ever felt conscious about my weight is when going traveling. And I hope I'm not the only one that experienced this, but I put on some weight when traveling because I was eating so much great food. I can't even say I was eating rubbish food. I was eating so much good food. But for example, a lot of Colombian dishes are very deep fried. And so it wasn't healthy, but it was good food, if that makes sense. And I put on a bit of weight, and I just noticed, I think, towards the last few months of our travels, and I've never really been self-conscious about my body. It's not something I've ever really thought about. I just don't really care usually. But suddenly looking in the mirror, and I realized like my face shape changed a bit, and my legs looked a bit different, and my arms, and it was just quite a, oh God, like what do I do? Oh God, I look horrible. And that's just not the case. I think also in my instance, I don't think I was the healthiest weight to begin with. And that was not me trying to make myself that weight. I am quite an anxious person. Living at uni was quite a stressful period of time. So I don't think I had the healthiest eating habits, but I do want to say that was not something I had planned or anything I was aiming for. It just kind of happened. And so I will say I don't think I put on so much weight that I'm so overweight. I think I actually just put on enough weight to be a healthy weight, which I can't diss and can't be upset with. So getting into a healthy routine I think would be great, and I definitely wish I had done that and sort of eaten in moderation maybe. But also half of me is like, it's a new experience, who the fuck cares? If I want to eat all this new food, I'm gonna eat all this new food. just, it doesn't matter. So I think with healthy routine, I would say the first thing is make sure that you're going walking every day. The first thing that you should be doing after you've had breakfast, or even if you've had lunch, maybe have a lie-in or something, go for a walk. I genuinely feel I could walk anywhere. We walked mostly everywhere. In terms of when we got to a town, we wouldn't get Ubers around or buses or whatever. We just would walk. And it was the best thing. I felt really fit, even though obviously I'm not running. And make sure you're getting enough sleep. I think when you're traveling, you obviously want to party, you want to drink, you want to have fun, meet new people, stay up late. But I think making sure you have enough sleep, especially when you have an activity the next day, is so, so important. Because if you don't have enough sleep, you're going to be in a shit mood. If you're in a shit mood, everybody else is going to be in a shit mood. How do I cope with travel burnout or fatigue? How do I stay positive? Travel burnout is a real thing. And I didn't believe people that said it was a thing before we left. But travel burnout it's hard. I mean, you really need to rest. You need to take care of yourself. You need to be drinking your water, sleeping as much as you can. And I think with travel burnout, we found to not put too much pressure on ourselves to be doing things. Oh, well, if you're in this country, you should be out exploring and you should be doing A, B, C. But we would just sort of say to ourselves, you know what, I don't have to do that. And I think the way to deal with travel burnout and fatigue is, apart from resting, of course, is give yourself permission to feel that way, because there is no pressure if you don't go out. If you go to a town for 3 days, that might just be your rest town. You don't have to go out and do all these things around there. After you've done really big excursions, things like the Machu Picchu hike, or after we've done the volcano climbing, you need time to recoup, because your body is going, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And sometimes your social battery goes right back to zero after doing things like that. Now, it's obviously good to talk about mental health and talk about the struggles people go through, but I do want to tell you guys a story about a time where I guess our mental health was, well, mine was boosted, and I went and did something completely out of my comfort zone whilst we were in Peru. It really lifted my spirits. I think I wasn't feeling great. Doing an activity where it just gets you out of your head and you have to really be in the moment was so, so exciting, so special. So this is the story of us going sandboarding in Peru. After we'd gone to Lima, we took the long journey from Lima to Huacachina, which is a tiny, I mean, I don't even know if it's a town. It's a town that is right next to the only natural oasis in South America, which when we saw on the map, we thought that's pretty cool. Also, my sister has some friends who had done sandboarding in this area as well when they went traveling. So we just sort of decided to go, didn't really expect anything, wasn't sure what sandboarding really meant at the time, wasn't really sure what an oasis kind of was. I mean, we'd never seen one in the flesh, so it was quite exciting, but it was a long bus journey there. We arrived at our hostel in the evening, and it was kind of party vibes. There was a bar, there was a pool, sun lounges, tables for everyone to sit at, everyone's drinking, smoking. It just looked like a really nice hostel, which if you see the town that you've just walked off the street into the hostel, you don't expect the hostel to be that nice. So it was quite a nice surprise. We stayed in a 4-bedroom, which was fine. We weren't really planning on staying in this place for too long. We just wanted to go to do the sandboarding because that's kind of why everybody goes. I mean, obviously, this hostel, people were just there to kind of party and swim in the pool and things like that. But we just wanted to do the sandboarding. And then after that, we were moving on to Cusco to do Machu Picchu and all of that. Let's just say I'm pretty glad I did not know what sandboarding was or that whole activity was going to be. Because I think if I had known, I don't think I would have done it. So the whole premise is that you go just behind this hostel into the sand dunes, kind of feels like into the middle of nowhere. You're only surrounded by sand. And there are all these dune buggies, which I didn't know was part of the deal. So I'm walking up with Sam and I'm saying to him, why are we getting in this weird car? I didn't know what it was. I was very, very confused by the whole situation. I thought, okay, they're just going to drive us out to the middle of nowhere and we do the sandboarding there. Why can't we just do it here? I'm very confused. We approach the car we've been told to go up to. There is a girl already sobbing. She is crying her eyes out, going, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Her friends are kind of trying to pull her into the car. She's going, I don't want to do it. I'm suddenly thinking, what the hell have I signed up for? Like, what is this? I'm so confused. I'm absolutely terrified now. What does this all mean? And so I'm kind of squeezing Sam's hand, going, what is this? And he goes, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I sit in the dune buggy, strap myself in, and the seatbelt is one of those that's like over your head, kind of like it's the one that's kind of like a roller coaster or something. It like straps in over double straps. And then we drive off into the sand dunes. I'm actually slightly shitting myself now, I won't lie. I am sitting there going, I don't really think I want to do this. I also can't see the sandboards anywhere. So I'm thinking, why, what are we doing? I don't really want to just drive around the sand dunes in this car. I'm very confused. But as we start to pick up speed, we're bouncing all over the place. It feels like a roller coaster. I'm almost crying. I'm screaming. I'm also laughing. I don't know how to feel about this whole situation. And then I see that there is a very steep sand dune that we're going up. And I'm thinking, why would we go up that? Okay, it's like, why? That means we have to go back down. Why are we doing this in the car? It's a straight road over there. We pick up speed, go right up to the top of this sand dune, and just go straight back down. And it was terrifying. Bearing in mind, the only thing I have strapping me in is this little seatbelt thing that isn't even a proper seatbelt. I'm just screaming with what the fuck is going on. I am just trying to enjoy it. I'm terrified that we are gonna flip, or I don't know what's gonna happen, because this dune buggy, the gears aren't really working, the steering isn't really working, the guy he seems too calm, to be honest. He doesn't really, I don't know what was going on with him, but he's very, very relaxed, which didn't relax me for some reason and did not make me feel better. And I am not a fan of roller coasters, so this whole experience it's not going well for me. Then we do the same. We go up a very steep sand dune, and suddenly he parks it at the top. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Okay, this seems very steep to be teaching us how to sandboard, because in my head I envisioned it as snowboarding, but you do it on, I guess, the equivalent of like a green in skiing, or, you know, like the baby slopes. And we're on what feels like a blue or black in skiing. We're all standing in this line at the very top, and this is kind of where the sand dune peaks, and so everybody's very conscious to not fall down the side or slip down. And he gets our sandboards out. They are the tops of skateboards, basically, which I'm thinking, what? And then they just have these two bits of rope at the top end, and those are the parts that you're supposed to hold on to. We're all standing in a line at the peak of this sand dune. Then the guy asks the first guy in line to lie down on this board that he has waxed, I guess, for friction. I don't really know. And we're all going, what? Like, why? What is going on? He gets the guy to lie down forward facing on his stomach, and then just pushes him off the edge of the sand dune and just shouts down at him, dig in your feet if you want to go slower. My stomach drops. I do not feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. I'm not enjoying this. I want to go home. I hate the idea of this. It's so outside of my comfort zone. But half of me is kind of excited at the idea of, I am never going to do this ever again. And I don't know what it feels like. So I kind of can't say no to it. Maybe I'll do the first one and then I just won't do the others and I'll stay in the car or something. So I go down and I'm so nervous. And also what I didn't realize, but Maybe I'll post on my TikTok or Instagram or something a video of the noises I make whilst I'm going down this sand dune. I make the strangest noises, and I think it's because as I'm going down, some of the sand is not flat. And so it's bumping on my stomach and it's making me make these really, really strange sounds. I also then realized that if you don't go down on the sandboard, you have to go down the same steep hill in the car. And I hated that car. It was so unstable, so unsafe, and I didn't trust it at the beginning. The only thing that motivated me to go down on the sandboard was the fact that I didn't want to do it in the car. I was terrified of that car. I also was terrified of the sandboarding. And I think what didn't help was I had in the back of my mind my sister's friends who had done the sandboarding in previous years. They'd had a really bad accident where I think she'd kind of forward flipped or she'd rolled down the hill, got sand in her eyes and was basically crying blood, I think is how I remember it. And I had that in the back of my mind. So I'm trying to keep my head out of the sand as much as I can. Sand can go everywhere else, but it will not go in my eyes. That was all I kept saying to myself. But it's that moment when the guy genuinely picks you up and chucks you off the side of this sand dune. My heart, I couldn't. And then it's this massive adrenaline rush, and obviously it then ends and you feel really pumped. You feel like you could do it again. But we did it a few more times, which was amazing. I know some companies actually that only did it twice. I think we got to do it four times. And every single time it got taller, it got steeper. And I came away from that experience so proud of myself, because it was not something within my comfort zone. It was not something I never would sign up to do something like that if I'd known what it was. So I think I just have to start signing up for things where I don't know what it is. It really then boosted me and gave me a lot of, I guess, self-confidence in a way, because I wasn't feeling great the days before, and I could then say I'd sort of conquered what felt like a fear. And Sam even said to me, if you can do that and you can go around in that buggy and be going sideways up sand dunes and going vertical down and everything, you can do roller coasters, because that was so much more unsafe than any roller coaster you will go on. So I guess to conclude, one way to help your mental health or boost it when you're traveling is to really go out there and do the things you never thought you would do, things you would never sign up for, and just experience a new thing and really embrace it, because I 100% am so glad I did that. I never would have thought I could do something like that. I hope I've answered all of your questions this week about managing mental health when traveling. If not, please send me emails or DMs or comment down below, and I can answer any other questions that you guys have. This has been a really great episode to talk about kind of the struggles of traveling, as well as obviously the fun side of traveling and new experiences. I can't wait to kind of talk about this more and get people maybe opening up a bit more about their mental health journeys during traveling, because it's definitely something everybody goes through when they go backpacking or when they go away from home for a long period of time. Moving to a new country can also change your mental health, and it has its ups and downs, and I obviously want to keep you guys updated with that. I will see you on the next episode of the Amelie Maran Podcast. Bye.